This is episode 3 of the Purple Pete saga. In this episode, Purple Pete's getting put back together. Cylinder packs are in, cylinder head is finally here, ready to be installed. Are we going to start in this video? Well, you'll just have to wait and find out. Purple Pete is getting put back together. We're still waiting on the head. Customer's going with an aftermarket head because it is difficult currently to get a 6NZ head from Cat. And he wasn't comfortable reusing the one he had since it had cracks in it. Let's get this guy put back together and get on the road. So if you saw the last episode of Purple Pete, we had cut the counterbores and got some excellent results with that. And these are what it looks like if you haven't seen it. But the counterbores are cut, the little ridges there been removed. We've also removed our covers over the rod journals because we're going to put our cylinder packs in. We're going to be using this Monaco Tools installer press tool. I like to use a drill and an impact, and I'll explain why when I'm doing it. Here's our cylinder pack, and this is number 5. It's the only pack we're replacing. And you can see I've engraved number 5, as you're supposed to do, on the tab side of the rod. Now all the stuff on the table here is pretty much what we need to get our cylinder packs in, and these are our liner shims. We've got our new rod bearings. They're standard size, luckily. We've got our old bearings there to compare numbers. We've got our liner seal kits, as you can see there. I've already installed them on this one. Oil, middle, and coolant. Purple's the coolant. You got oil there, and then the coolant's in the larger section. Haven't installed the bearings yet, as you can see. We've got our liner seal lubricant there, which is basically tire soap is what they tell you to use. Rubber lubricant, technically. And what we're doing here is something you should always be doing if you do counterbores is actually measure your liner shims. They're supposed to be right around 30 thousandths, and at least this part number is, which is a 6i4361, and I always measure it. Because last thing you want to do is pull cylinder packs in and then find out, hey, guess what? It's the wrong size, but these were not the wrong size. Also, they are directional. The part number needs to face up because, you can see, it's beveled. So the bottom side is a little narrower than the top. If you put them on backwards, it's going to throw off your liner protrusion. Also, you should always test fit them to make sure that they actually fit. I actually cut counterbores once and someone had moved the cutting bit and the liner shims didn't even fit where I'd cut them. It was the right depth but weren't wide enough. So you can see if I have installed our bearings there, and we're going to be using moly paste, which is what Cat says on these rod bolts. And I put it on the threads and under the heads. Also, those dowel pins need to face forward on the block, which is that way. And then the tab, that's the tab, the bearing tab needs to face to the right, which is the exhaust side, right? So engine, you always are standing from the rear facing forward when you have directions. So we're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Now, you always want to lubricate your rod bearing, obviously, because you don't want to put these on dry. Once it is lubricated, and you can see I'm using oil here. It's a mix of some Cat engine oil and some Schaefer's. That's why it's got some kind of a greenish tinge to it. Don't worry, folks. It's not retaining compound or anything like that. But once that's set, we are ready to go. Now, the filler band here, which is the topmost seal, needs to be soaked in oil. However, it's very time sensitive when it gets soaked. So first thing we're going to do is grab our tire mop sponge guy thing here. And then we're going to coat the lower liner seal area. And this is to help lubricate the liner seals when you press them in. You're also going to lubricate the seals themselves. Just pretend you're giving them a sponge bath. So I'd actually filmed doing number 5, which is what I was doing there, but I didn't like how it turned out, so we're going to be filming doing number 3. So I'm basically doing, from a different vantage point, what I just showed you. We're going to put the tire soap on the bottom of the liner seal area. Then we're going to lubricate the liner seals themselves. Yes, I need a haircut. Might actually get one today. And once that's ready to go, we're going to set it in. Now remember the filler band. You do not want to forget that, but you want to put it on right before you press the liner in. So the filler band's kind of a weird seal. It swells when exposed to engine oil. So if you put it on too early, it might swell too much, and then it might squish out and cut when you're installing it. However, if you don't put enough oil on it, when installing it, it won't swell properly. Now you can see you want to face your bearing tab to what would be on my side of the engine, not on the camera side of the engine. The alignment dowels for the rod need to face forward. You can see the seals are in the proper order there. And then you're going to as gently as possible. Now you can see that the piston actually fell. Well, it didn't fell, it slid in, so that's good that I had put the rod bearing on already. So we have our filler band there. You need to soak it in oil. In the past, folks, I would actually put the filler band on and then just kind of rub oil on it when it was on the liner. That's not what CAT tells you to do. They tell you to soak it in oil, so that's what I do. And it's still quite a bit of oil on it. It's better to have a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. You can always wipe off the deck when you're done. Now that that's soaked, you need to get this liner pressed in quickly. Now remember that tire soap that's on the lower seals also is going to be drying the whole time you're doing this, so this is kind of a time-sensitive process. I'm using this tool here. This is a liner press, and basically all it does is it takes that plate, it sits in the liner bore, and I use an impact, a little nut driver basically. You're not really tightening these head bolts very much, you're just seating them. And then I like to use a drill. Now if you're careful, you can actually hear each seal compress. You can see the drill kind of slows down a little bit for just a split second. That's actually each time the seal gets to the next tapered area in the bore. It's kind of interesting if you watch these little things. So that's all installed. That's basically all we're doing for all the cylinder packs. And so we're doing 3 here, so the next one would be 4, and then I'll rotate the crank around and do 1 and 6, and then they'll all be in. Now you need to put your cap on, obviously, your rod cap. Now unfortunately, folks, I had forgot the film number 2. I was actually doing the last one on 6, and I was like, oh shoot, I didn't film doing the caps, but caps are pretty self-explanatory. They can only go one way, at least these ones can, because they have the alignment dowels, and you torque them to 65 foot-pounds and then 90 degrees. I'm using my snap-on torque angle meter there. So what's our liner protrusion going to be? Hopefully 4 to 5 thousandths. 4 thousandths, right on the money, just what I was hoping for. So 4 to 5 is what I usually shoot for. Here's our old numbers. So we had 0s, 1s, 2 was the highest I could get. Now they're all 4. We actually had a couple 3.5s, which are within specification. The old specification actually used to be 1 to 6, but so 3.5s are perfectly fine. While you weren't looking, I got the oil pump and all of our tubes on. Ladder plate ready to install the oil pan because we still hadn't received the head yet. And hopefully the head will be here soon. Still waiting on the head. Once the head here, we will get it put on. 55 hours later. So the head showed up on Thursday, 2 in the afternoon. It was supposed to have been here the previous Friday morning. So customer's pretty upset about this. Now, if you had told me this was a CAT head, outside of a few things, I would have believed you. It comes with these purple lifting straps. First thing I would have noticed is this YT, what is that, 6090 or whatever. That's different than CAT. Those plugs are different than CAT, but the casting itself looks pretty much like a CAT head. I'm not sure the brand on this. I did not see a brand name on the box. The cups are already installed. It looks pretty much ready to go. It looks like a decent cast head, and also no cosmoline, so I don't have to worry about cleaning all that stuff off, which is a major plus in my book. Now, a couple things that's different. CAT always puts this little plug on the intake manifold in. That was missing. That's usually plugged from the factory also. They do give you the plugs, not with CAT O-rings, so I use CAT O-rings in place of the O-rings they gave me. Now we need to get the camshaft swapped over, all the fittings and sensors, and prep it for installing it on the engine. So let's make haste and get it swapped. Pretty quick, huh? So it's prepped, ready to go on. I could have set it the previous night, but I don't want to set it without torquing all the head bolts. Now, folks, do not ever forget this plug. If you do, major destruction could ensue. Got two different destruction of the week. This one comes from Alex. This is out of an ISX Cummins and came in for a quote-unquote grinding noise. This is the crankshaft you're looking at, by the way. Yeah, crank is snapped in half. Supposedly this is a lower hour engine too. Not sure why it did this, but definitely a big problem. Next one comes from Mark from Australia and came in for a quote-unquote knocking. Yeah, I'd say. Check out this picture though. Oh yeah. Yeah, we got some problems here, folks. Actually found a few extra parts in the oil pan here. Pretty cool pictures. Thank you to Alex and Mark for sending them. Let's get back to work. So the head is set here. I left the exhaust manifold off because I wanted to get this head on and straight and do the overhead without having the turbo in the way. Now the procedure for this is the torque from inside out to 200 foot-pounds and 330 foot-pounds. So I usually use my snap-on long-handled half-inch for the 200, and then I use this big old 3/4 one for the 330. And you just go in the same sequence, inner to outer. And there's actually two layers of head bolts. So you kind of do the inner, and then you go outwards, and then you do the outers and go outwards. It'd make sense if you were seeing the pictures, but once that's all done, what we're going to be doing here is lubricating the injector bores. Now, I used to always just lubricate the injector seals themselves, but Cat tells you to lubricate the bores, and generally it can't hurt to put a little bit of extra oil on the seals. Last thing you want to do is cut an injector seal. Not that I've ever done that, but I don't want to do that in the future. So getting them set up here. And obviously this is sped up, folks. We are lubricating all the seals. These injectors are being reused from before, so they were cleaned and new seals were installed upon them. Once those are all in, you're going to use new injector bolts, torque those, and then you can put your valve bridges on and your rocker arms. Now on these 6NZs, the rocker arm bolts go through the jakes and through the rockers. So you need to put your rockers on, then your jake assemblies with the bolts. Then you can torque them all. And you might notice I use a variety of different torque wrenches, folks. Kind of just preference. This is a 3/8, goes up to 100 foot-pounds. These are not getting torqued to 100 foot-pounds. These get torqued to 80 foot-pounds, but now I had already installed the cam gear. Do you have to install the cam gear first, or do you want to install your rockers first? Well, generally you want to install the cam gear first because you want to make sure that the cam and the crankshaft are timed before putting your rockers on, because theoretically you could damage a valve if you're out of sequence and you install your rockers and you force that valve right in the piston. Doing our overhead here, obviously sped up, folks. Overheads aren't something you want to speed through either. You want to do them efficiently, but take your time and do them correctly. Definitely don't want to be doing it again or cause any damage. See, we have our valve cover base on. We're installing the injector solenoid nuts, and they only torque to 22 inch-pounds, so I use this little screwdriver type torque wrench to get those on there. Yes, I torque those little 9/32 nuts. Now you can see I got the last valve cover on here. Has a good feeling when you do that. Also got the turbo on, but there's still about 6 hours of work to be done. Unfortunately, this was the end of day Friday. Really wanted to finish up in this video, but this is as far as we got before the weekend hit. I want to say thanks to Andre, Alan, Eric, Jeffrey, Christopher, and Samuel for donations this week. We'll be finishing up Purple Pete next weekend and hopefully starting a new project in the same video. Thanks for watching.